Back at it here on the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast. Down a man. This time, we believe, for the whole show. We were down a man to start. Last week, we're down a man for the whole show. Eric Eager has business to attend to, so he is busy. He'll be back with us next week. So just me and Jeff. Jeffri Chadiha from the NFL Network, Soren Petro from Sports Radio 810 WHB. We're proudly brought to you by our friends at Gann Asphalt and Concrete. And we got a lot to get to. Rashid Rice just won't stay out of the news. Alleged there are allegations, and the Dallas police are investigating. Did he punch a photographer? Those are the allegations that are there. This being reported by a Dallas television station. We will talk about that. Then it's time for our annual comps. We like to comp out all the draft picks. We use old Chiefs, former Chiefs only. What's the ceiling? What's the floor? For each one of these Kansas City Chiefs draft picks, we do it right now on the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast.
You're listening to the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast, the most in-depth analysis of the Kansas City Chiefs on planet Earth, breaking down the Chiefs like no one else can. Red, Gold, and Bold is hosted by Jeffri Chadiha, Eric Eager, and Soren Petro. Jeffri Chadiha is a senior columnist and on-air personality for the NFL Network and NFL.com. Eric Eager is the vice president of research and development for Sumer Sports. Soren Petro is the afternoon drive host of the program on Sports Radio 810 WHB in Kansas City. The Red, Gold, and Bold podcast is proudly brought to you by Gann Asphalt and Concrete, Kansas City's nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor, making parking lot problems disappear since 1994. Free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews, and every project comes with a written warranty. Find them online at GannAsphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. Gann Asphalt and Concrete. One contractor, all things parking lot. Now, here are the hosts of the best Chiefs podcast, Jeffri Chadiha, Eric Eager, and Soren Petro.
All right, thank you very much, Curtis. We do appreciate it as we make our way through what became a much busier, the off season. We're talking about topics, we're trying to figure out what to do. And then all of a sudden this afternoon, Dallas television station reports that Rashid Rice is being investigated for an assault on a photographer on a scale of 1 to 10, Jeff. You're surprised. You're shocked. Is that what level?
Yeah. 9. I mean, for our purposes, Rashid Rice is certainly the gift that keeps on giving. But, yeah, I mean, I would think that given what he's facing, given all the attention that's been brought upon himself, the lawsuits that are active right now, a suspension in the works for sure, that he would be laying pretty low. And so, again, I don't want to jump to judgment on this one too quickly because unlike the last case where we actually had video footage of him walking away from a scene of a crime, we just have very little information aside from an investigation, an allegation. We don't know the specifics. We don't know the context. And so I will give him that level of grace, but to have this even be a situation, given the timing of what just happened a few weeks back, yeah, it looks pretty rough for him. It's astonishing that he just can't sit at home and just stay away from trouble.
Yeah, it doesn't seem to be that difficult, does it? Like, just don't go get into any crap, and you're good to go.
Yeah.
Right? And they're not good to go. We all think of suspensions coming and so on and so forth. But, we're talking about basically your career is on the line, just hang low, right? Until at least this blows over. Now you've got two things hanging over your head. And I'll start this. What is the reaction, do you think, from the league? They'll let the due process play out to find out whether or not he gets charged. But just to have this hanging over, just to have the accusation, what does that do when you throw that on top of what's already hanging over his head?
Well, it adds to whatever the punishment is going to be. I mean, right? I mean, again, I'm trying really hard not to get into this area where I'm already condemning him as being guilty. But yeah, I mean, if you're Roger Goodell in the league office, you hear his name again after a month ago, seeing what happened on that road in Dallas with the high-speed racing and the crash, you are thinking, okay, I've really got to send a message to this guy. This is true. And so, it's it's hard to look. I understand he's a young guy. I understand he's whatever, 23 years old, 24 years old. I understand you want to go out, you feel like you want to enjoy yourself. But there is a point where you have to believe or understand what you're doing to yourself. And I go back, I remember, we brought it up on this podcast, and I remember seeing a shot of Andy Reid on the Zoom call being asked about Rashid Rice back whenever. I think it was the start of the OTAs or whatever it was. And his response was, I think somebody asked him a question in terms of, can you trust him moving forward? And Andy Reid's response was, if he's learned his lesson. And usually he's a lot more diplomatic, a lot less direct. And that, as I think about this now, there was a sense of, yeah, we've been worried about him getting into this kind of trouble before. And you've mentioned the things you've heard on scouting reports coming into the draft. I would assume that they're holding their breath, and Roger Goodell's doing the same thing.
Yeah, I do too. And I think your point about what Andy Reid said this past week is spot on, right? That's not usually how he goes about doing things. But he's now, pretty much saying like, hey, he's got to show that he means it. And I don't know how you could take it. Like his lawyer said, Sam McDowell brought up a great point. His lawyer said, don't judge him on this one incident. Judge him on his whole body of work.
That's right. Give him two.
Talk about blowing up in someone's face. Yeah. I mean, come on. It's I don't know. It's just not understanding what's important. Who was the player? There was a guy who just kept getting in trouble. You're like, he just doesn't get it.
For the Chiefs?
Who?
For the Chiefs?
No, he's another player in the NFL. I want to say he was a DB.
Well,
it's not
Pac-Man Jones.
No, it wasn't Pac-Man. There was somebody who just kept being involved. And it was like, I think
Pac-Man was involved in a lot of stuff.
He was. And that's up there on the list, right? I don't know. I'm mesmerized.
Chris Henry? There were some Bengals players back in that day that were Chris Henry who died in that ride in the back of a pickup truck or something like that and got thrown off.
It might have been. But to me, listen, and it's obvious. Patrick Mahomes has called and said, "Hey, we're going for 3 Super Bowls." I mean, he was down at Mahomes' throwing club. There was a conversation, right? And it apparently means nothing.
Yeah. Well, and that's also why it gets hard to repeat and to do what they're talking about doing, which has never been done, because eventually you have guys showing up on the roster who just expect to have good things happen because they're wearing the uniform or because they're a part of the franchise, because Patrick Mahomes is their quarterback. And yeah, there is a level of focus that's allowed them to do what they've been doing. And look, we've been around that team in the locker room. We've seen the kind of guys they have in there. They have a lot of high quality, high character guys. And I'm sure there's a feeling amongst Andy Reid and Brett Veach that we have the kind of culture in place to be able to deal with guys who are going to get into trouble. And given they've had so many guys get into trouble and still been able to win, that does hold true. But what you don't want to do is start going down this road where you think you can always succeed in these cases. And it's starting to feel like Rashid Rice is one of those guys that is going to push the envelope and is going to probably be in trouble a lot at the pace he's going. Again, we always refer back to the Patriots when it comes to comparing the Chiefs to dynastic franchises. Are the only ones out there in the last couple of decades to be in that same category. And I was watching the Tom Brady roast, and they were having a lot of fun at Aaron Hernandez's expense. But remember when he came along, they were just 1 year removed. They went to a Super Bowl with him. And then 2 years later, he was in handcuffs getting carried off for a murder charge. And all that stuff that they knew about him started to come out. And it was just like, how could this guy be in the NFL, let alone with this franchise? And it's because teams start thinking, well, talent matters. We can make the guy a good guy.
Yeah. How about this one? Tommy's brought this up, and there's a little bit of chatter going on in the chat room about, hey, Tommy basically said on his first one, how about the at the end of regulation at the Super Bowl where Rashid Rice was barking at Patrick Mahomes. And Tommy's saying here, Kurt's kind of going, hey, players get mad at each other. He said, when was the last time, a receiver went after Mahomes? I mean, is that an obvious flaw there when we see that kind of behavior?
Yeah. Well, did he and Tyreek Hill get into it in the locker room? Wasn't there something about that? Was that around the time of the Benemy stuff was going? I thought that season there was something going on with he and Tyreek Hill were bumping heads.
No, I didn't hear that. I heard Tyreek Hill was maybe agitated at Eric Bieniemy.
Okay.
But
yeah. But Tommy's point's a good point, which is that little things in a vacuum may not make you, wonder or make you curious about where this is going to go. But enough stuff has happened now, and you alluded to this, and Eric alluded to it as well, as far as going back to the pre-draft process of people saying pointedly, yeah, he's not a good guy, and that stuff doesn't happen randomly. If somebody's heard it, somebody's seen it, there's probably truth to it because they talk to so many different people. And again, I don't know the dude that well. I don't know him at all. Talked to him at the Super Bowl for a little bit. But aside from that, I mean, there's enough here. And I think put it into the context of what's been happening with the Chiefs, like every year there's been somebody who's had an issue with the law going back to like the last 5 or 6 years, that you have to kind of know what you're dealing with, what the environment is, what the past has been within your franchise. Yeah, championships resolve a lot of stuff. They're great deodorants, but there are a lot of people around town. When I talk to people, they're kind of like, what's wrong with this guy? And he's only been here for less than 2 years.
Yeah. I mean, it's just not something that should be this big a problem. And one time should be enough to scare you straight. And that certainly didn't work. Listen, if you want something that works in your parking lot, Gann Asphalt and Concrete, proudly serving the greater KC area, nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor. Parking lot problems, they've been making them disappear since 1994. Don't risk accidents and liability in your parking lot. Get your parking lot restriped today. A brightly striped lot will cut down on accidents and keep your parking lot as safe as possible. One contractor, all things parking lot. It's Gann Asphalt and Concrete. Find them online at GannAsphalt.com. And, interesting comments in the chat room. How about the one thing I'll ask you, maybe we'll put this one to bed, the Travis Kelce going after Andy Reid. Is that like a sign of Andy Reid? Is that the loose ship that people should be worried about?
You mean in the Super Bowl?
Yeah.
Talking about? I think it's a little bit different. There's a relationship there that's been built over time. Travis is an emotional guy. In that moment, I think Andy understands him pretty well. I mean, I almost feel like you go back to during the season when Andy was like grabbing the helmet after he tossed it and was holding up and don't let him go out there. That was more of a indication of, kind of the frustration in their relationship. But that's always been, I think, more of a situation of here's a volatile player who wants to win. Here's a coach who, Travis, aside from that marijuana charge back in college, is really his problems have only always been on the field with just getting, losing control of his emotions. So I think it's totally different than what we're talking about with Rashid Rice.
Yeah. I'm not saying that Travis Kelce has that problem. I'm just saying the nature of you can be combative on the sideline. If you can be combative to the head coach, you can be combative to the quarterback.
Yeah.
Is that a sign that Andy Reid needs to tighten the ship?
Yeah. Well, I think Andy Reid decided a long time ago, going back to even when Alex Smith was a quarterback, let the guys be who they are. Let your personality show, right? That's kind of been his big mantra to this team. And it's helped them win a lot of games. But when you go that route, and we've talked about this in terms of other players and guys they've hyped up a little bit too much, or people they've held on to or defended too long, that it's kind of hard to reel that back in. That's the environment they've created for themselves. Guys can be who they want to be. It's encouraged, it's embraced, it's led to a lot of success. But I don't think you can all of a sudden reel that back in. And again, I don't think this team is going to turn into the 1995 Dallas Cowboys and all kinds of crazy stuff and stories coming out. But you walk that fine line, and they're willing to take players who have had some issues, who can adapt and adjust because of their belief in that kind of trust they'll give those kind of players. So no, that's not changing. They're going to keep operating that way for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, it is. Listen, it's all alleged right now.
Yeah.
We'll wait and see. The Dallas Police Department is investigating it.
Yeah. But you can see it happening.
Oh, for sure. I mean,
Easily. Yeah.
Yes. But they said there was a person, they arrived on the scene, had swollen side of his face. Do we have a he said, she said here? I don't know, but clearly something happened and he was there, which is the first thing. Like, don't be in a spot where bad things can happen, which was in the early hours of Monday morning, which means really late night, Sunday night. Like, who gets after it on a Sunday night?
Hey, well, and let's face it, if there's a photographer, there's going to be photos or video coming out sooner or later.
I can't believe we don't have it on TMZ yet.
It's coming. I promise you that. We're going to find out real fast if he was involved in this.
The Red, Gold, and Bold podcast is proudly brought to you by the Northland Injury Law, KC's Google 5-star related personal injury lawyers, helping people with serious injuries from car accidents, work accidents, falls, other serious personal injuries. Their attorneys have been serving KC for more than 40 years and don't get paid unless they get money for their client. That's right. They don't get paid unless you get paid. Northland Injury Law voted #1 accident lawyer in Kansas City. Don't wait. Get compensated now. If you have a case, text HURT, H-U-R-T, to 22222. If you have a case, that's HURT to 22222 or call 816-400-HURT. That's 816-400-4878. Choice of a lawyer is an important one. It should not be based solely upon advertisements. Talking about Northland Injury Law, text HURT to 22222 to get connected 24/7. All right, let's turn our attention back to the draft. We like to do this every year to give our comps on the players that have been drafted. And we'll get Eric's at a later date. We have yours and mine. All right. How are we comping Xavier Worthy? We're giving a floor and a ceiling.
Yep.
Where do you want to start?
I'll start. I'll start with Xavier.
Okay.
And I know there's a lot of people. I know people talk about Deshaun Jackson as the big comp, and people talk about Tyreek Hill because of the speed. I have my hopes set a little bit lower with him. I think the ceiling for him is Eddie Kennison.
Okay.
People remember he was a pretty fast guy coming out of college. He ran in the 4.3s, like high 4.2s when he came out of LSU. Obviously bounced around a few places before he landed in Kansas City and found a success. But a pretty good. He played for 14 years. He had over 500 catches, 8,000 yards, 42 touchdowns. I think that's very much within reach of what a guy like Xavier Worthy could be in this offense. Again, I think he'll have impact in his first year, but the impact will be more about, taking the top off defenses, opening up the underneath opportunities for Travis Kelce or Rashid Rice if he's not locked up somewhere by that point. But I think he's going to probably be a guy who catches 60, 70 balls at the peak of his career as opposed to 90 or 100. The floor, again, low-hanging fruit here is McCole Hardman. I will go with Sammy Parker, which is a nice blast from the past, who caught 110 passes, played in 47 games, and really never measured up to being that kind of explosive player that Dick Vermeil was looking for when he was running that big-time offense.
I love it. I think those are great. He was supposed to be a speed guy, track guy out of Oregon. I've got similar connotations, but different people. So I'm going to stay with an LSU grad, right? But I'm going to go a little more old school. I'm going to go Carlos Carson, who also had speed, had wheels. That's my upside. Okay. My upside is Carlos Carson, who made 2 Pro Bowls as a member of the Kansas City Chiefs, had 3 1,000-yard seasons, and averaged 18 yards a catch.
I remember him. 88, right?
88, yep. Carlos Carson. Listen, he and Henry Marshall and then J.T. Smith, they were the guys when Bill Kenny threw for 4,000 when 4,000 meant something.
Yeah.
And he could get deep, obviously 18 yards a catch. That was a time when they went longer more often anyway, but he was still a really good wide receiver. Like I said, 2 Pro Bowls. I'm with you. I don't see Tyreek Hill. I think that's where everybody wants to go, is right to Tyreek Hill. I can't go there. I really think, like, when the game is done, I'm going to point to Tyreek Hill, Megatron, and Randy Moss as the 3 physical freaks of the wide receiver position that just will never be duplicated.
Yeah. Right?
Maybe somebody will be the first whoever. They're going to be the only ones of them. So I think Tyreek Hill is off the board. But Carlos Carson could ball out. He was a great player on bad teams. But then I'll go to another guy who was a pure track guy, speed guy. Went number 11 overall, I believe, in the 1982 draft for the Kansas City Chiefs.
Oh, you're going way back.
A man by the name of Anthony Hancock.
Oh, yeah, Tennessee. That's the floor?
That's the floor.
Okay.
Right? Because, do you remember the name?
Oh, yeah. That was back when Tennessee was producing a whole bunch of big-time receivers. That's Stanley. He followed Stanley Morgan, I think, at Tennessee. Okay,
so like I said, he went number 11 in the 82 draft. Remember, that was a pretty good draft, by the way. He went 11. Here are his years. 9 games, 7 for 116 and 1. Followed that up with 37 for 584 and 1.
Yeah.
Right? 10 for 217 and 1.
Yeah.
15 for 286 and 2.
Yeah.
4 for 63 and 0. A career of 73 for under 1,300 and 5 touchdowns.
Wow.
Never could translate the speed to being an NFL wideout. I don't think that's where we're going to be. I'd buy ceiling before I'd buy floor.
Yeah.
But I mean, listen, if he can't get off the line, he can't get open.
Yep. And I see people in the comment section saying that I think Tommy made the comment like that's the basement for Sammy Parker, a Sammy Parker comp. But look, it's a real thing. We can 2 weeks ago rattled off a ton of names of guys who are super fast, who came in this league with amazing speed, who did nothing. And so I'm with you. I think we both have the same sentiment of it could be a huge home run. It could be a huge swing and miss. And guys who are like that tend to have hamstring pulls and tend to have all kinds of injuries over time. It's great to have that speed, but you get in the NFL and you don't look as fast. That's what makes Tyreek Hill so amazing. He looks fast even in the NFL. That's what made Randy Moss so special. He looked fast even in the NFL. I think I have high hopes for Xavier Worthy. He's gone to the right place in terms of how they want to use speed guys, but I could easily see him being somebody who we look back and say, yeah, it was a swing and a miss.
All right, real quick here, we want to welcome a new sponsor. By the way, we appreciate all the love we're getting, a lot of new sponsors. Make sure you support the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast by supporting your sponsors like Besame Wellness.
Besame Wellness, online or curbside. Shop daily at Besame Wellness for all your cannabis needs. Open Monday through Saturday, 9 to 9, Sundays, 10 to 6. Locations in North Kansas City, Liberty, Smithville on Berry Road, and in Warrensburg. Even delivery for medical marijuana. Getting your cannabis has never been easier. We at Besame Wellness strive to make your life as easy as possible and cannabis as accessible as possible.
All right, with all kinds of tricks now, too. Don't worry. Technology's going up and up. Even if Eric is swamped and busy at work, at that time we still are adding on the technology.
Got some Geek Squad in you, Soren.
Or I know geeks. One or the other. I'm definitely a geek, but I definitely know geeks as well. All right, let's move on to the second round. Kingsley Suamataia. Hang on. Suamataia. Kingsley Suamataia. Suamataia. Kingsley Suamataia. Who you got? Floor, ceiling, where you want to begin?
I'll start with the ceiling again. And, this is a guy who didn't play his whole career in Kansas City, but I think he was a pretty good player throughout his career. Brandon Albert. And I know he was a first-round pick. I believe he was a top 15 pick, right? When they took him, was he that high?
You're talking about who?
Yeah, Brandon Albert. When they drafted him.
Brandon Albert was, round. He was like –
was he an 8 or 9?
He was like 12, I want to say. Here, I'll tell you in a sec.
That was draft with like Jamal Charles and all those guys.
It was a great draft. Yeah, it was the 2008 draft. Last one run by Bill Kuharich. Brandon Albert, 15.
15. And who went before him? Just
Glenn Dorsey at 5.
Glenn Dorsey. Yeah, the guy.
But that draft, to your point, Brandon Flowers in the second, Jamal Charles in the third, Brad Cottam in the third, DeJuan Morgan in the third, Will Franklin fourth, Brandon Carr, played for like 20 years in the fifth, Barry Richardson, Kevin Robinson, Brian Johnson, Mike Merritt. Another great example of have a lot of picks.
Yeah.
Because you forget about Brad Cottam, but you don't forget about Jamal Charles.
Yeah.
Take 3 third-round picks. One of them's Jamal Charles. You remember it.
That's pretty good. Pretty good. Yeah, so Brandon Albert played in 2 Pro Bowls, played 9 years. I think he was a guard when he came into the league, or he could play guard or tackle, but he was kind of had a basketball player's type build. He wasn't like this super size offensive tackle. Kingsley's a little bit bigger, obviously, but I think the the athleticism, the potential there. I think that if he hits, he could be a Pro Bowl player. Like you look at the things he did jumping out of the pool, and you look at his numbers at the combine that compared favorably to Penei Sewell as far as a 40-yard dash, 10-yard splits. I think that with Andy Reid, he could be a star. So I think easily he could be a Pro Bowl player. And again, big swing, big miss. Floor is Trezell Jenkins, who played in all of 9 games over the course of 3 years and is better known for owning 3 Chicken Shack restaurants in Detroit, Michigan that he bought in 1999. I was all over Wikipedia today trying to get this down. So that's the floor. That is the basement, Tommy. Trezell Jenkins.
Yeah, that is the basement. That's as low as it gets. Look, I will tell you this. I'm right there with you. Trezell Jenkins. And I looked around at a number of guys. Victor Riley was a solid player.
Wow.
If that's your floor, he maybe didn't reach his potential as a first-round pick as an offensive tackle. But if that's your floor, then you're going to be pretty good. Or you have, no split between the floor and ceiling. So I was like, I can't go there. And I did not want to land on Trezell Jenkins. I did not, because it's really low. That's about as bust, although he was bottom of the first.
Yeah.
That's as bust as you can get.
Yeah.
But the negatives I hear about Kingsley, well, there are times you look at him on tape and he looks like an all-pro, and there are times you look at him and you go, where is that coming from? That's kind of a guy who's not getting it. Yeah. And I heard this even from the BYU color analyst who played in the NFL. And he's like, listen, there are times I'd be like, no, that doesn't look like a first-rounder. I think there's first-round ability, but there's not. It's average arm length. So he's got to be good on the feet, which he's clearly got explosion, so he should be able to be good. But if he's not good on the feet, or if he doesn't study the pass rush moves, he's not going to just reach and redirect around. Yeah. He doesn't have Orlando Brown length. And so if he's getting beat and he's not getting the technique down, technique is so important in the NFL level, I think it could go horribly wrong.
Yeah.
So Trezell Jenkins, I couldn't find anybody else to even pop it up to, because I don't mind. I like the pick where they took it. Mm-hmm. If you wanted a guy that you knew was going to start at left tackle, I don't know that I wouldn't have minded you hammering more ammunition and moving up and getting the tackle higher in the first.
Mm-hmm.
That scares me. Ceiling, stay right there at BYU. John Tate.
Okay.
Because of those limitations, Tate started on the left, was serviceable. Then they went out and got Willie Roaf, moved over to the right side, was very good, played close to a decade between the Chiefs and Bears. Chiefs, he and his agent didn't get along with Carl Peterson, so they were gone as soon as they got the free agency. But then he started at left tackle for the Bears and then right tackle as well. I think that's where I don't think Suamataia is ever going to be put at left tackle and you go, we're done. If he plays there, you're chipping, you're helping. I think he mirrors more of a John Tate, a guy that is probably going to play both, is never going to own left tackle, but probably has 8 to 10 years in the league.
Was Tate that athletic? I remember him as a player, but I remember specifics about him.
He was athletic enough to go 14 in the draft.
I remember.
What
year
that part about him? He'd have been
1991, 92, or 90.
Got farther back than I realized.
I thought he was with Grunhard.
1999. 1999.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So he
14.
played the end of Grunhard's run.
Yeah.
Okay.
1999, pick 14. So, he was pretty athletic. They thought he had left tackle ability, and I think he did. You just didn't have a Pro Bowl left tackle. Yeah. When you could get Willie Roaf, you were great. That was their great offensive line. We know the guard to guard gets all the run, but Roaf at left tackle and Tate at right tackle was one of the best. I'm hoping that's what Kingsley can be. Okay. That's my hope.
Okay.
All right, Jeff. Now we are to Jared Wiley.
Hicks. Oh, Jared Wiley. Yep. Jared Wiley. This was a tough one because Travis Kelce has so dominated the position for so long, and Tony Gonzalez before that. To find somebody, I'm not picking this guy to be one of those two guys, so I have to find somebody in between. And for my money, the ceiling for Jared Wiley is Tony Moeaki, who had a couple good years. I just don't think he's going. If Travis Kelce is here for 2 more years, I don't see him doing a whole lot production wise. and maybe they find somebody else in the mix as they draft. He seems like a solid player, but Tony Moeaki had a couple good years to start his career, then he started getting hurt.
Did he?
I thought he caught like 47 balls. Yeah, he caught like 47 passes his first year, didn't he? A rookie?
Yeah, I would say he had a good year.
Yeah. What was his second year? He had like 50 in his second year.
Well, you'd think I'd have that window pulled up because you're going to hear his name here in a minute. 47 for 556, 33 for 453.
Okay, 33 for 450. Okay, so he only had 91 career catches, so that was most of the bulk of it was done in the first 2 years, and then he was gone after that. So I think this guy's probably going to be a one-contract player. Maybe he's got some star qualities to him, but I don't think it's going to happen with this team.
Let me point one other thing out about Tony Moeaki.
Yeah.
In 2010, 15 games, 47, 556, and 3. Missed all of 11.
Yeah.
Second year was 12, 33 for 453 and 1. Went to Buffalo, 2 games, no catches. Went to Seattle, 6 games, 8 for 134. And then to Atlanta, 11 games, 3 for 58.
Yeah. And then he was out.
The injuries crushed him.
Yeah.
Right? Whatever he was going to be, he was never able to get there.
Yeah.
I guess I remembered more of the downside.
He had that great one-handed catch for a touchdown. He was on his game. Remember that? 40-yard pass. I forget who threw it. What's that?
Did you give me your floor?
No, not yet. No, the floor is Noah Gray. The floor is Noah Gray.
Noah Gray floor. Oh my God. If Eager listens back to this and Noah Gray's a floor, he'll say, well, clearly you have to have like Gronk for the ceiling. Living legend Noah Gray in the eyes of Eric Eager.
Yeah. No, I think he's going to be closer to the floor than the ceiling with this one.
Okay. Yeah. All right. I will.
Is Tommy doing the Tom Brady roast over there? He's getting all kinds of play over here with his humor.
Oh, he loves it. Here he's got Tommy's floor, Moeaki, ceiling, Walter White. Okay. Not far off. Floor, I go Tony Moeaki.
Okay.
And I have to be honest, I did not remember to the degree he had success those first 2 years.
Yeah.
All right. So I might be giving the floor a little too much.
Yeah.
But 4th round tight ends hit in the NFL. Hell, Travis Kelce was the 3rd. Now, I'm not willing to go Travis Kelce or Tony Gonzalez. And it's kind of tough on this team because it's very much hit or miss. But I'm going to go for another guy who was a Pro Bowler. His name was Fred Urbanus. And I'm going way back.
Okay. Yeah.
Way back.
Dust it off. Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know those guys were in play for this.
Well, we said Chiefs,
Yeah.
right? He was a Chief and a Texan, technically.
Okay.
Fred Urbanus had years like this early on. 29, 469 and 6. 34, 373 and 6. 34, 68, 686 and 8. 24, 418 and 4. For his career, 3,000 yards, 67 touchdowns, all with the Chiefs, played a total of 9 seasons.
Yeah.
I'm looking at.
Those are Pro Bowl numbers back then.
They were. And that's what I want to stress. If Wiley puts up those numbers, he'll be a really good pick. But he won't be as good as what Fred Urbanus was, who may have been, I don't see if it's on his page. He may have been first team all-AFL, all-time AFL.
I'm sure he was.
He was really, really good. So I'm not talking about that he'll grade amongst his peers like Urbanus, because Urbanus is much closer to Gonzalez and Kelce. He's not at their level because he wasn't John Mackey and Mike Ditka, but he wasn't far off. And there are people that'll tell you, had he played in the NFL, not the AFL, he might have been remembered with those guys. But I do think there's some upside. 4th round tight ends end up being good. Why can't this one be good?
Okay. Yeah, because he's playing behind a Hall of Famer.
Well, but how many years do you think he's behind him?
Yeah. Well, at least 2, right?
I also think that's the kind of position where who was the tight end in front of I'm trying to remember the Eagles tight ends. Anyway, to me, that's just the kind of spot to where Kelce plays 3 more years.
Yeah.
You get 1 year as a starter, which doesn't make you too expensive, makes you a nice fit to stay in Kansas City.
You think he's like Zach Ertz and Dallas Goedert?
There it is. That's exactly what I was going for.
Well,
Ertz and Goddard. The replacement had backed up, moved in, stayed the second contract. I can see that happening. All right, let's go for Jaden Hicks.
now, I like Jaden Hicks a lot. I think that he was a steal with where they got him at. I like his skill set a lot. I think he'll probably play a lot more than people think. And so I went with Jerome Woods for the ceiling, who I thought was a really good player on a really bad defense. Towards the I think part of his career was spent on a pretty bad defense. He was there in the late 90s as well when they were still decent. But man, he had some great numbers. 720 tackles for his career, 15 interceptions, 5 sacks over almost a 10-year career. I mean, if this guy is what I think he is with the versatility, I could see him being that kind of player, which is why his floor is not that low for me. I went with Jared Page, who I thought was a somewhat underrated player for this team. Didn't play obviously his whole career here, but he was a solid player, play center field for you, could hit you, come up and hit you. I thought that he was as close as I could come to for a floor. There are a lot of safety options for the floors, but I like Jared Page the most.
Jared Page.
He was there with Bernard Pollard years.
Oh, okay. Yeah. All right.
See,
Good.
I just said he was underrated.
Yeah.
I remember the guy.
Yeah,
He was like a UCLA safety, 7th round pick.
Okay.
I think they came in like a year apart.
All right. Well, I'll give you the floor first again. I'm going to go Armani Watts is where I'm going to go.
That's pretty low. Yeah.
Because I think here's the thing. So if you read like the breakdown on Hicks, looks a lot like the breakdown on Cook, right? Loves to hit, come up and tackle, ready to go, can get beat on coverage, right? Like big hitter. Cook shocked me last year with his coverage. And maybe that's going to happen again. Maybe I'm biting too much on what he was in college. The Chiefs seem to love to get guys that will hit and say, we'll teach him to cover.
Yeah.
Right? But we can't teach you to hit. You'll either stick your nose in there or you won't. And Armani Watts, I just went like, at some point, don't they got to swing and miss in the D backfield? That was a safety, same round, that just ended up being a special teams guy. I think Hicks is definitely going to play special teams, and he's going to be that guy. But if the coverage doesn't come around, I think there's a floor there. My ceiling is Bernard Pollard.
Okay.
Big hitter, lay the thump, maybe doesn't come around as the coverage guy, play in the box. I was tempted to go Eric Berry. But because I think Eric Berry, what he really was, and Eric Berry, what the Pro Bowl said he was, were two different things. Like Eric Berry was replaced by, what's his name? The safety everyone hated. 47.
Sorensen?
Sorensen. And he played the same spot.
Oh, yeah, the nickel.
Linebacker.
Big nickel.
In the nickel. And I'm like, so that's not exactly a ball hawk.
Wow.
But I didn't want to go there because there's some people that, with all the Pro Bowls, how can you say that? So I went Bernard Pollard, a good, long career, big hitter, played on good teams after leaving the Chiefs. I think that's a pretty good comp. So I'll go Bernard Pollard. By the way, if you want a pretty good investment, Gann Asphalt and Concrete, when it comes to your parking lot, you can do no better with free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews, and every project comes with a written warranty. Let Gann Asphalt and Concrete take care of your parking lot. One contractor, all things parking lot, Gann Asphalt and Concrete. They are the best. For 30 years, been solving parking lot problems all over Kansas City. Call 816-484-3338. Find them online at GannAsphalt.com. One contractor, all things parking lots. All right, let's move on to the 5th round. Here we go. We begin with Hunter Nourzad, center guard, Penn State.
Now it gets hard. And I can't go back as deep into the Chiefs history books as you can. I have things to do with my day. But Creed Humphrey is the ceiling. I think if he can replace him. Now, this is a guy, it was kind of tough because I know he's there to replace Creed Humphrey, but he can play other positions for you. So I played around with the idea of having multiple players, but ultimately I went with center and thought this team has done pretty well at that position with having Creed, having Mitch Morse, having Rodney Hudson. It just makes sense that they'll find a way to make this guy a successful player if he indeed is going to, if Creed Humphrey's going to walk. And so I'll go with that for my ceiling.
Creed's the ceiling.
Agrees the ceiling, yeah.
Okay.
The floor is, I think, one of your favorite players, Eric Kush. 2013 draft pick who never really made much of a dent. Didn't much of anything.
Not here. He did start for the Rams.
He did. Yeah,
in fact, I think he was the starting center for the Rams in the 54-51 game.
Was he?
I think so.
Wow.
I might be getting my years crossed, but
go back and check. He played that long?
I think so.
It came in 2013. It came in the same year as Kelce.
He hung around a while. Let me see. That would have been 18, right?
Mm-hmm.
Was he Eric with a C or a K? I can't remember.
I think a C.
NFL stats.
Kush was with a K.
Was with a C. And I am completely wrong. I don't know who I was thinking of. There must have been some other Chiefs cast off because he went from the Chiefs to the Rams in St. Louis in 15, and then went to the Bears in 16, 18, Browns in 19, Bears again in 20. So I'm totally off.
But he stuck around for 7 years, though.
Yeah, he did. Bounced around, had some years out, had some years back in. So he did put together a decent little career, but not the kind of career that I was thinking. I don't know who I was thinking of. Would that have been, you know who that might have been? Who I'm thinking of? The starting center. No, it's not. Forget it. It's going to drive me crazy. I'll look it up later. I know we seem to have some connection. Anyway, all right. For me, Tom Baugh, basically on the roster, did virtually nothing.
What year is that?
Tom Baugh, I'm
like Tom Baugh, Holly.
No,
is that where we're going?
Beaugh.
Okay.
Was Tom Baugh, and he was back in that era where like the Grunhards and there were guys in front of him, and he had a bit of a career. Here, I'll find him. Had a bit of a career, but really never stuck. I think this guy's going to be in the league, right? Tom Baugh was now you got me saying Tom Baugh, fourth round pick in the 86 draft. 3 years with the Chiefs, 1 with the Browns, started 16 games total, played in 40.
Yeah.
So, but no real impact.
Yeah. But think about that position, though. Going back to Grunhard, you've probably had 5 guys play that position over the course of 30 years.
Yes. Yeah. No, it's a great point. My upside is Tim Grunhard.
I thought about that. Yeah.
The guy's not drafted as high, but Timmy was just a nails there, dependable guy. That's what this guy seems to be. Off what I read, people think he could start in year 1. Like, I think this was a really good value pick, that was the write-up before he got picked, right? Going into the draft. Could be a year 1 starter. And Timmy Grunhard stepped in as a year 1 starter. I'm probably reaching here, but this. Yeah. Good centers come in later rounds.
Yeah. Well, I thought about Grunhard, but Ring of Honor, I don't think Creed's going to be a Ring of Honor guy, so I just couldn't go that high with him.
Okay. All right, now we're down to the 6th round. Kamal Hadden, corner, Tennessee, your position.
I'm going, this is, maybe not that creative. Ceiling is Josh Williams. Floor is Jalen Watson. So I think he's just going to be one of these guys, these 6'1", 200-pound guys who come in, play special teams, probably solid, make a play here or there, but not going to be stars. Maybe get a chance to start a little bit, but yeah, I wanted to go look at other. I didn't want to be too extreme on the floor with him, so I was thinking about guys like Kavari Russell or DJ White, people that just didn't do a whole lot, but it was just like I didn't want to be unfair to the guy. I think he's more like the guys they have right now, so I think he fits with what I think Williams might start this year. So if he starts, that's great. If he's a backup, he's Watson.
How much room is there between Watson and Williams?
Not much. Not much. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
I think he's going to be the same exact player as those 2 guys.
Well, this defensive coaching staff seems to always get productivity out of defensive backs. So for a floor, I'm going Rashad Fenton.
Okay.
Right? Similar, not as good as your guys. Your guys bump Rashad Fenton. Yeah. So I've got a little bit more of a floor. At some point, they got to swing and miss, I would think. The upside, though, and they have upside Jerry Sneed, 4th round pick.
Yeah, I wasn't
How I
going
think you
there.
get him.
Man.
I'm not going there either.
Okay.
But I am going to Brandon Carr.
I thought about him.
A good, solid corner. Played for a long time, right? But never more than a number 2. If he was more than a number 2, you had problems.
Yep.
But just a good, solid corner. And I think any defensive back they draft, you've got to give some upside to, because they're pretty good with them.
Yeah. This kid had pretty good man coverage skill. He had a shoulder injury or something like that, knocked him out of college, right? His last year. So people were high on him.
He led the Vols in interceptions 2 years.
Yeah.
I think I remember reading that. So if he can do that, there's some skills. There's some ball hawk there. And with this defensive coaching staff, they seem to get every bit of talent out of every defensive back they've got. So give me some Brandon Carr. Okay. I'll take it to the bank.
Grand Valley State.
Yep. All right. Finally, Holy Cross, the pride of Holy Cross, C.J.Hanson, guard. Take some swings here.
Well, with this round, you just go and put with guys who are getting flyers taken out on them. But I think Nick Allegretti is the ceiling. And people say, this is a guy who was a backup for almost his entire career, only played when guys were hurt, but played well enough to get a second contract, get a contract for free agency. Yeah. And so if this guy's career goes that path, that's not a bad way to go. I mean, a guy who could play for you, give you depth, and then go find somebody elsewhere, it's a pretty good deal. So Nick Allegretti is my ceiling, and my floor is, remember this guy, Parker Anger.
Yes. Tackle converted to guard.
Yep.
I get no idea how to spell it.
Like out of the league.
Yeah.
Ehinger.
Well, I wasn't far off.
Yeah.
I had Ehnger because I'm like, I'll figure it out later.
Yeah.
That was my idea. But I was in the ballpark. Dude, I do remember like 6'6", 330.
Oh,
315-ish at least. Bald, by the way, that's the thing I remembered. Like, or looked 33 when they drafted him.
Yeah.
Right? Kind of played like it too. All right. I'm going to go with, I think that, let me tell you the reason. Zach Fulton is my floor.
Wow.
All right. And Zach Fulton had a little bit of a career. You remember, went down to Houston?
Yeah.
I just think that if you get drafted by this team, they had no linemen.
Yeah.
He's going to make, I think all three, obviously round 2 is going to make it, but so are the other 2, and they're going to have to be ready to go and play.
Yep.
And they've been pretty good at drafting linemen. They've been pretty good at those late round guys, like you said, Nick Allegretti. So I'm going to take Zach Fulton. I'm going to say this kid, and here's the other reason why I like him. They never take Holy Cross. They never take little schools. Yeah. They love big schools. Since Brett Veach has been there, it's Tennessee, it's Penn State, it's big programs.
Yeah.
What are they doing at Holy Cross?
Oh.
Unless they love this kid. So they must love this kid. They take him in the 7th round. I'm going to give his floor Zach Fulton. Probably way too high.
That's pretty high. Or 7th round.
Pretty high.
Yeah.
But not as high as what I'm about to say. Dave Szott.
Wow.
7th round pick, ended up being a Pro Bowl caliber player at times during his career. I'm going with this, 1, because I think they love him, and 2, because I want to say the name Dave Szott.
Yeah, that's fair.
Dave Szott was tremendous. I also get the idea the things I read about this guy are the things that were said about Dave Szott. Not stout enough at the point of attack. He's getting all the small school knocks.
Yeah.
It must not be big enough, because he went to a smaller school. But Dave Szott, while he played at Penn State, the thing that Howard Mudd, his O-line coach, said about him, not enough lead in his ass, right? Was not sold on him. And because Dave Szott was a guy that used to try to take stuff in his pockets to the weigh-in. He was always trying to stay into the 270s, right? Because he was so
was that light? Wow.
That's what Grunhard used to say. They call him 279. And Timmy's like, no chance. No chance. Like Grunhard was trying to keep his weight down. Szott was always trying to get his weight up. But, since they went center and guard, not the same rounds, give me Grunhard and Szott for my upside on 2 of the linemen.
That's pretty good. If you hit those 2, you got a pretty good run going. A couple of Ring of Honor guys.
Again, you're not hitting ceiling on all these guys.
No.
But Always a fun exercise. That's for sure. All right. Eric Eager will be back with us next week here on the Red, Gold, and Bold. Hopefully we'll have some clarity on the Rashid Rice situation. We'll certainly be breaking it all down. For Jeffri Chadiha from the NFL Network, I'm Soren Petro. Thanks to all our sponsors. We want to thank, of course, Gann Asphalt and Concrete, the best when it comes to parking lots. One contractor, all things parking lot. Northland Injury Law, Kansas City's Google 5-star rated personal injury lawyers. You can find them online at northlandinjurylaw.com. And to our newest sponsor, Besame Wellness, we appreciate their great support. We hope you will support our great sponsors. For Jeff, I'm Soren. For even Eric, who's not here, we still love him, even though he's not here. Thank you very much for joining us here on the Red, Gold, and Bold.